All right, we're on 18 views now. I say we should pretty much go for it. What do you reckon?
Yep, let's flip the coin.
All right.
I'll go for tails.
Oh, of course. I've got to go be heads. That's my surname. It's heads.
So
You're
you go
going
first.
first.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jacob Paul Marshall, also known as English Warrior on YouTube. Now, some of you may know me, some of you who may not. So if you don't know who I am a former Young Independents East Midlands chairman and a former UKIP candidate in the local elections last year. And since then, I have joined the Conservative Party. And I am against any further military intervention in the Middle East, which is the topic me and Damien are going to be discussing tonight. So really, this is just an open debate between me and Damien and a chat, and we want to see all of your guys' opinions. Damien?
Okay. Well, my name is Damien Heads, aka the Young PJW. I've been running my YouTube channel for a little while now. It used to be called the Kipper Stream. It's now Purple Tories. And yeah, I'm very much in favor of the motion today that it was very right that the Americans bombed the shit out of Soleimani, or whatever his name is. The reason why I believe that is because Soleimani, is that how do you say his name? I can't even remember how you say his name.
I reckon everybody gets it wrong.
Soleimani. We'll go for Soleimani. Okay. He has been responsible for a lot of the atrocities on behalf of Iran. Iran is known to be one of the biggest sponsors of terrorism around the world. And he's responsible for killing plenty of British and American soldiers. And before they actually bombed him, he was actually doing an attack on a US embassy in Iraq. So he was in a foreign country, Iraq. He's Iranian, obviously. So he's meddling in a foreign country, trying to basically take over that region to basically have it as territory which is friendly to Iran. And like I said, he's been sponsoring terrorism. He needed to go down. And the fact that he attacked the American embassy was the last straw. You can't attack an American embassy and expect not to get bombed the shit out of. So it was well deserved, in my opinion.
Well, I agree with the fact that he was a terrorist. We can agree on that. And terrorists should be eliminated, no question about that. The problem I have is that President Trump is going to use this as a justification for a trade war against Iran and possibly a military intervention in Iran. And this will lead to more refugees. Well, we've already seen the escalation, the Strait of Hormuz. There's been rumours that Iran are going to be closing off the Strait of Hormuz to cut off the world's oil supply. I can't say the particular names. It's, the strait where all the oil goes through.
Right, okay.
So there's been rumours that Iran, because of this provocation by America, are going to be cutting off this strait, which is where 90% of the world's oil supply goes through.
Yeah.
So obviously this is going to escalate a bit further, possibly into a trade war at the very least. But this will mean that it's going to have an effect on us and everybody around the world in terms of prices. And we can see inflation go up. And now there's two options we can stop this. Either the option de-escalates or it's a regime change and we change the government of Iran to stop the trade war overall. And they're the only two options we have going forward. And if we have a regime change war, that is just going to make more fundamentalist Islamic terrorists more radical. Because the reason why they attack the West is because we attacked them already. And if we're just going to keep attacking them more, it's just going to make them want to fight back more and make them even more radicalized. So that's where I think we should start the discussion.
So this is all based for me on a presumption that they're going there because they want to start war with Iran. And for me, why would America want to start war with Iran, a country which is developing nuclear weapons? it just seems crazy to me. What benefit would they have? Do you really think they want to go into Iran and do what? Do you really think they want to go into Iran and happen again what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they're just having a nightmare war, where the public are hating it and the people aren't believing in it? What benefit is it?
We've already seen several American politicians say they would support a war in Iran. They've been saying it for months now. But this is, well, for example, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, I believe he's made a statement saying it would be ideal to go to war with Iran. I'm not 100% on that.
I dispute that. I don't believe that.
We've had former Republicans during the George H.W. Bush era say we want to go to war with Iran. And obviously,
I don't believe that either.
Donald Trump has been surrounding himself with former George Bush advisors who advised Bush to go to war in Iraq. George Bush. For example, his national security director was a former Bush advisor to the Secretary of Defense during the Iraq War.
Yeah,
yeah, and and his Secretary of State, his first few businesses were run by the Koch brothers. So, and the Koch brothers are big oil tycoons, and he obviously ascended to become CIA director then. Secretary of State.
Do you know that America is one of the largest producers of oil?
Yes, I did know that.
So why would they want to be going into Iran when they already have oil?
Because it would, well, we have a situation with China in terms of how China are building up their exports. We have a situation with Russia where most of Europe's natural gas is coming from Russia. So if America wanted to create profits from that oil and sell it to other Western nations, then they'd obviously want to create a proxy war in Iran so that it boosts the prices and makes it a bit more competitive in terms of the Russian gas and the American gas.
But why would they want to sell them Iranian oil when they could sell them American oil? I mean, shale gas wonders for America.
Iran has been very closely aligned with China and Russia. So obviously, if they were to go to war with each other in a proxy, if that would make sense, it would give Russia and China less of a basis to be considered economically strong in the oil exports, if that makes sense.
But you've already got Saudi Arabia and places like that who are large producers of oil. What does it matter if Iran is making oil or not?
Because, so have you seen the oil pipeline construction plans in the Middle East?
No.
So some are divided based on religious lines and some are divided between the nations. So Russia wanted to build a pipeline directly through Syria and Iraq. And obviously America was against this because that would put their natural resources there at risk. And so they created the idea of basically radicalizing troops to make sure that it basically stays a complete mess, so that the Americans would have to send troops in the Middle East and sort of create this diversion to basically stop the Russians from developing this pipeline. And I'd recommend you watch a video by Jimmy Dore, and it's quite good. It goes into depth about it. And it basically explains why America wants to go into war in the Middle East so it can combat the Russian pipeline expansion and with everything else that's going on in the Middle East in terms of terrorism, etc. And I just think that how
are Iran going to get oil to Russia? I don't get it. Where's the pipeline going to go through? Are you saying they want to go through Iraq and then up to Russia?
Well, you have to if you look online, there's a picture of it somewhere. I can't quite describe it because I haven't got it in front of me, unless you let me look onto the pipeline thing. But if this war were to happen, it would create more refugees and more immigration to Western nations, which I'm sure you would oppose yourself.
Well, before we talk about consequences of this premise, which I don't even believe in, let's go back to the premise.
Right.
You're saying are you saying the main reason is because they want Iran's oil?
Not because they want Iran's oil, but because they want to protect their oil interests in Iraq and Syria.
Because they want to protect the oil interests. Okay. So America, in order for this to work how they want it, you're saying they've got to invade Iran, right? Defeat all the opposition that they'll face in Iran, the military, which is like a bigger military than our military. They're going to have thousands of people killed minimum, unless they were to just nuclear bomb it, which I don't believe they would. Do you think they'd go through all of that just to get some oil, of which they already have anyway, which is shale gas?
We saw it against Saddam Hussein. We've seen it against Bashar al-Assad in Syria.
You said Saddam Hussein. So do you think the war on Iraq was because they just wanted oil? That's why they invaded Iraq, because they wanted oil.
Well, it's one of the main points, I would say. It's not the Iraq war. I consider was illegal because I think it's hard to. Well, the Iraq war, I think, was a consequence of the fact that America had already begun intervening in the Middle East, if that makes sense. So, you've got the Ba'ath Party of Iraq, who came into power. They were basically a nationalist party, the Ba'ath Party, but they were obviously quite dictatorial. And I think America wanted a more sort of globalized government to take Iraq over, so that it would basically allow them to create a sense of globalization and economic stability there, and allowing them to trade with America rather than them becoming a bit more nationalist and basically standing up on their own 2 feet. And obviously Saddam Hussein was not willing to play along with America, as we now know. And that's the main reason why America decided to invade Iraq and create this so-called war on terror.
They wanted to stabilize the region.
In their terms, yeah.
Well, that's almost true, I would say, but I wouldn't say it's for the underlying reasons that you're implying there. I would say that my interpretation of the Iraq war anyway was that the US intelligence, well, first of all, Saddam Hussein was a horrendous dictator who killed hundreds of thousands of people and drains the marshes, which was like the biggest marshes in the Middle East at the time. But they had intelligence, the US intelligence service, that's probably not what they're called, the CIA, whatever it was, had intelligence that they had weapons of mass destruction. Now, this intelligence was obviously wrong, but they needed to take out Saddam Hussein anyway, weapons of mass destruction or not, in my opinion, because, like I said, this guy had killed hundreds of thousands of people and he'd already invaded Kuwait. For me, it seemed very much like a good thing to do to get rid of a murderous dictator. But obviously, you're against that way of thinking, aren't you?
Yeah.
So what? Say we've got Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait. We'll go back to the original Gulf War. Would you have just said for America to not have intervened there and just let Iraq invade Kuwait?
There was a letter that Peter Hitchens sent to Saddam Hussein, or I'm not sure if it was Peter Hitchens, but there was apparently a letter sent to Saddam Hussein that said, after he invaded Kuwait, that said, what you should do is hold a referendum to see if Kuwait wanted to join Iraq or not. And I think if they had done that and sent international observers to watch that referendum, then I think we would be having a completely different discussion entirely. if he had taken that proposal, but obviously military intervention was the thing that he chosen. But I mean, Kuwait.
What is your threshold for intervening? So Saddam Hussein, he's killing hundreds of thousands. That's not enough to be your threshold for intervening, in your opinion, no?
If they are not directly attacking my citizens, if they're not directly attacking British citizens, then I will not intervene.
Okay, so what if it's? I know this is a typical example, but what if it was World War II and Germany's invading France? You wouldn't be inclined to help the French at all out. You'd be quite happy for Germany to just invade France.
Well, one, it's none of our business to get involved in these sorts of affairs, unless obviously we have agreements with France in terms of military support. Then obviously we'd have to get involved. But if we don't have an alliance with said country, then we shouldn't get involved.
Okay, see, well, I know a lot of people will paint me out to be a neocon, but I don't actually consider myself a neocon at all. But I think where there's certain circumstances where you have like a really terrible dictator such as Saddam Hussein or whoever else it may be, if they're literally killing hundreds of thousands of people and causing mass terror, including threatening America and threatening Britain, perhaps, I think you're well in your right to take them down, and I think you should take them down. And I very much supported Trump and the way he sort of said, I don't want to be involved in all these foreign wars, because we have been involved in a lot of foreign wars, like Libya, which was a total disaster because there was no really plan for how that would play out, and Syria was obviously a disaster as well. But
there's a funny story about Libya if you want to hear it, about how that all went down.
Okay, well you can tell me that after I'll just finish this little bit. But we have been involved in things that we shouldn't have been involved in. That's what I would say that I very much align with you on. But Saddam Hussein was a whole different kettle of fish. Like I said, he was murdering hundreds of thousands of people, and the Americans did actually find that he had a nuclear facility where he was developing nuclear weapons. So it wasn't complete rubbish that he had didn't have WMDs. But he hadn't developed any
WMDs that we knew of. They were in development, but they weren't actually there. So on the premise of the WMD argument, it's still irrelevant because he hadn't actually produced any WMDs, just had a nuclear facility on which he could possibly develop a WMD, but he didn't.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, he was getting close to making one. So if you have a murderous dictator who's already invaded another country, murdered hundreds of thousands of people, has a nuclear facility, is developing nuclear weapons, do you not think that is a good idea to intervene to stop this person killing masses of more people?
Well, that's obviously he says we're going to nuke this particular country. No, I don't.
No?
No, I think it's the right of a nation to develop nukes if they want to. I think personally that countries shouldn't be restricted in developing nuclear arsenals, personally, because it's not our right to intervene in the business of that government developing technology, etc.
Did you know that Saddam Hussein, he actually said that the one mistake he made in his career was he should have developed the nuclear weapon before invading Kuwait. So imagine if he was a bit smarter and developed it before, then we would have seen a lot of terrible happenings going on because of that.
Well, yeah, that would have been a scary prospect if that had happened. But I stand by my point of saying that we should not intervene in terms of countries developing nuclear arsenals. Because the United Nations isn't particularly effective, is it, at maintaining peace and order? It's basically like the League, starting to become a bit more like the League of Nations before World War I, isn't it? the UN. So it's basically a useless organization spending masses of money. But as I said, I don't think the nations should have a limit on what they can produce in terms of their military and industrial capabilities.
I don't think countries should be stopped from developing nuclear capabilities. But when you have someone, a brutal dictator such as Saddam Hussein, developing them, and like I said, as someone who's killed hundreds of thousands of people already, then I think you have a good reason to intervene and save a lot of lives.
What would be?
There are particular cases where the circumstances are right, where you can do your bit and actually save a lot of people.
Even if it's at the cost of thousands of that nation's citizens' lives, even if it's at the cost of destroying whole communities that possibly before the war.
Yeah, it sounds.
So you would be comfortable with destroying a person's village just because someone in that government.
But they're not destroying villages, are they? They're targeting particular terrorists, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump did target a particular terrorist, but the point you were making was, do you think we should be able to go to war if someone bad in the government is doing something bad?
Yeah,
that was the point you were making.
It's not someone who's just being bad. For me, it has to be a particular set of circumstances. It has to be a brutal dictator killing hundreds of thousands of people and with nuclear capabilities and threatening to use them. For me, that is a cocktail of good reasons why you should be able to intervene. So, I wouldn't argue against intervening in every country whatsoever, because I think we've been involved in far too much. But I think there are particular circumstances where you could be saving hundreds of thousands of people, if not more. And I think that's well within your right.
Do you think it was wrong for us to intervene in a country like Libya?
Well, Libya was a disaster. And I don't believe, to be honest, I don't really know enough about Libya. But I don't think what Gaddafi was doing. Well, Libya was a state sponsor of terror. And so you can make a good reason for getting rid of Gaddafi, but they didn't plan it well at all. And so what was left there was a vacuum. And so Libya was a big screw up on behalf of America and Britain and France as well. What they should have done is what they did with Iraq and sort of tried to stabilize that area, which they didn't. So if you're going to do it properly, which they didn't do.
Well, that leads me on nicely to what I was going to say before about Libya, and that was, remember when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State? Well, her Clinton Foundation was taking money off oil companies, stuff like that, military contractors, and Hillary Clinton but she pushed for the invasion of Libya, and on behalf of these contractors. And in the WikiLeaks emails that all got leaked like a few years back, you can see it all in those emails about how basically all these companies had donated to the Clinton Foundation, and basically asking politely, as we would put it, that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton proposes bombings and drone strikes in Syria so it can benefit the private contractors, etc., like that. So you've got that.
I don't doubt it. Hillary Clinton is one of the most deplorable people of all time. But I just wanted to get into that territory briefly, because I do actually think there can be a good case for war in foreign countries if the right conditions merit it. Like I said, if you're saving hundreds of thousands of people, if you're preventing a lot of chaos. However, let's get back to our original premise, which was the killing of Soleimani. For me, this is the most clear-cut thing, or close to clear-cut.
Look, I agree with you. Soleimani should have been killed. He was quite visibly a terrorist, in my opinion.
So you agree with me? I've won the debate.
No, I don't agree with you, but we're talking in terms of military intervention. That's what the debate is. That was the debate.
You just said they should have killed him, and they did kill him.
Well, I think, well, there's two arguments to this. One, he shouldn't have been killed because he was a Iranian general. He was a high-ranking member of the Iranian government, and I didn't say I fucked up now, haven't I? Sorry. Can we go back? Can we go back to before any of that happened? I'm against them killing him. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'm against them.
And what do you think did support them killing him?
Yeah. Sorry, got mixed up. That was like, when words just come out.
Are you sure you didn't have a change of heart?
No, I'm sure I didn't. No.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. But I think because he was a high-ranking military general of a foreign nation, we shouldn't have had the right to kill him because that was that nation's problem.
In the US embassy.
Well, that's the reason why I was attacking the US embassy is, well, the US embassy issue, if it's attacking another country's embassy, then it's up to that country whether they want to take that unilateral action or not to eliminating that particular obstacle. But as I say, I don't think he should have been killed. And I think, firstly, there could have been better ways to go about it. I think what Donald Trump should have done is contact the Iranian government and said, look, this guy's going around attacking our embassies. We need you to deal with them. But
do you think the Iranian government would give a crap what Donald Trump had to say about controlling Soleimani or whatever his name is?
Well,
do you think they're really going to care what Donald Trump says?
Well, we could have gone a more diplomatic route, but obviously Donald Trump decides to try and strike him.
Iran is one of the most tyrannous regimes in the world right now. They're not going to be listening to Donald Trump, trust me.
Well, it's not up to us to dictate what other nations' governments are. It's the responsibility of a nation state to conduct meaningful negotiations with other nation states and not to interfere with their business. And that's what I fundamentally believe.
But Iran was interfering in the business of Iraq by going into Iraq and not just taking over territory and killing people and soldiers, but attacking the US embassy. So surely...
But it wasn't Iran directly. It wasn't Iran directly, was it? It was a particular sect of... It was an Iranian general attacking it, not Iran directly.
But you just said he's one of the most important parts of the Iranian government earlier.
Yeah, but we don't know if it was Iran attacking the embassy directly or whether it was just him acting alone in doing that, do we?
Well, by extension, he is a member of the government. And so if he chooses to attack that embassy, it's basically the government attacking that embassy, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not up to... I mean, we don't know definitively if the Iranian government said, go attack that embassy, do we? Donald Trump hasn't said that the Iranian government asked this guy to go and attack an American embassy. He hasn't said that.
It would be like if Mike Pompeo said to go attack the Cuban embassy in Mexico.
Okay, we've got some breaking news on Sky News. United States-led coalition is to leave Iraq after Soleimani killing. So they're
really,
yeah.
So why is that happening if they're so hungry for war? I thought they really wanted war.
Well, that's just defeated the point of this entire debate, then, hasn't it? Yeah, thanks, Donald Trump. Cheers for making this debate completely irrelevant. You absolute.
Well. I know partly why that is. That's because
Iraq voted to get them out, basically.
Yeah, the Iraqi MPs, because the majority of Iraq is Shia, which is obviously the same as what Iran is. And so they don't. Most of the MPs don't mind Iran meddling in their country because they're Shia and they want to get one over on the Sunnis.
Yeah.
But I think the whole premise of this original argument of Soleimani being killed by America because America wanted a war with Iran to control the oil area, I think it's just nonsense. Because like I said, number one, oh, that was my coin. They already have tons of oil themselves, shale gas, and all the other oil they produce in Texas and wherever. And for them to invade Iran would be such so much hassle for them. They'd be killing loads of soldiers. Like Iraq would be like child's play compared to trying to invade Iran. Invading Iran would be ridiculous. The amount of opposition you get. There's no way they'd be interested in doing that. So I really can't see why you would draw the fact that they've taken out a general who's been attacking their people and attacking their embassy to them wanting to go to Iran for oil. It just doesn't.
I mean, the point I was trying to make was that obviously, that Iran supports state-sponsored terrorism. So if they wanted to get rid of the issue of terrorist groups taking out of American soldiers, then they'd just change the government, wouldn't they? Through military intervention. And that would create bigger problems long-term than it would just to try and negotiate with the Iranian regime. In fact, shall we discuss the effects if this were to happen?
So can you make that point again more simply?
So you said earlier on the stream that Iran supports state-sponsored terrorism.
Iran, yeah.
Iran. So if the United States wanted to get rid of that obstacle of terrorist groups like Hezbollah getting state-funded sponsorship and arms and stuff like that, then they could just simply take out the government by invading Iran. And it's one of the options that has been discussed at the Pentagon and by senior defense officials. So I think this provocation is to try and test Iran about whether or not the US should sort of do this or not. It's sort of like sort of like how Russia plays around with.
What? So you think America has killed Soleimani as a test to see how hard it would be to invade Iran?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Because we've already seen escalations go ahead, haven't we? I mean, we're seeing soldiers being killed in Africa by people who support the Iranian regime. We've seen multiple terrorist attacks around American bases that are state-sponsored by the Iranian regime, allegedly, or confirmed. So I think this is a good test to see whether or not Iran is going to put up the fight against America, which they obviously are, given everything they've been saying. And this could escalate further into a possible military interventionist war.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to wrap up my argument now, but I'll say to people, send in your questions now, and me and Jacob will answer your questions. I'm just basically repeating myself here, but like I said, I still very much believe that Trump is our guy. I don't believe that he wants war with Iran whatsoever. Not only because I believe in Trump in general, I think he does want to stop America getting involved in lots of foreign wars. But because, like I said, war with Iran would be catastrophic. I don't think murdering a general who's attacking the US embassy and has caused plenty of American and British soldiers to die, I don't see how taking him out equals wanting to go to a war with Iran. I think that's all based on an assumption which is put out by people who are so anti the neocons, people who have watched all these conspiracy videos and things, and they think that the neocons are always out to get America involved in as many wars as possible, whether that's instigated by Israel or whoever. And I do get that there definitely is lobbyists in Washington, and I'm sure Israel wants America to get involved in certain conflicts as well. But I certainly don't believe America wants to get involved in a war with Iran for the reasons.
Okay, most of these comments are spams.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have any legit questions, please feel free to contribute. But otherwise, I think we might have to wrap up this debate. Oh, I see one here. If the criteria for invading a country is its leader killing their own civilians and developing WMDs, should we not launch an invasion of North Korea? Okay, I'm going to take that as a point to me because it sounds like an attack on.
Well, I think we should both answer that question, to be honest, because it is a good point in terms of.
Okay, well, I'll do mine first because it's clearly against my way of thinking. So this is in basically a rebuttal against what I say about it was right to intervene in the case of Iraq. So North Korea, no, I would not advocate intervening in North Korea because North Korea, okay, they have killed a lot of their own people, but they've never been a real threat to anywhere outside of North Korea. And to intervene there would be catastrophic because they have nuclear weapons. So yeah, number one, it's dangerous. Number two, they're not an external threat other than, their stupid cyber hacks and stuff like that. And so it's not worth it. But in the case of Iraq, not only was he killing hundreds of thousands of his own people, he was also invading other countries and started a war with Iran. I almost forgot that. He started the war with Iran in the 80s, which killed hundreds of thousands of people, if not at least 1 million. And so I don't see him being in the same category as Kim Jong-un. Yeah.
I think
for those reasons.
I think the situation with North Korea, I think they seem to behave more when we offer them a seat at the table, if you've noticed that. So when, for example, President Trump
they're willing to talk. Yeah.
So I think what we should do is offer them a seat. I mean, I know they're already involved with the United Nations on a very small basis, but I think if we were to offer them more of a seat globally, they'd start being a bit more open with us. Because as you've seen, President Trump has tried to develop trust with Kim Jong-un in some category. Yeah, and I think if we were to develop a bit more trust, I'd be willing to become a bit more economically open to trade and stuff like that.
Yeah, even though Kim Jong-un is an aggressive leader, he's not aggressive in the same way as someone like Saddam Hussein. He's not blatantly invading other countries and saying that he's going to use, well, actually he is saying that he's going to use nuclear weapons. I'll take that back. But
he tends to say that when he's not being offered a seat at the table. So as long as we offer him a seat at the table, he's not going to.
Yeah, it's quite obvious that he just wants to be taken seriously. That's the main thing for him. He has to be seen as a person of great importance in the world, whilst Saddam Hussein didn't give a flying hoot. He just wanted to invade Iran, invade Kuwait, and kill hundreds of thousands of people. So I've got a couple other good ones here, actually. Well, I think it's the same person rebutting again.
Okay, here's a question towards me.
Wait, before we do that, North Korea isn't a threat to anyone outside of North Korea. Does South Korea and Japan not exist? Yes, they're a threat to South Korea and Japan, but they haven't done anything. They've just mouthed off, given it all that. If they want to give it some, then they'll give it some, but at the moment it's all talk.
I just had a question come from Scottish independence referendum too. Yes or no?
No, not now. Definitely not. Yeah. Maybe in 20 years' time or something, but not now.
Here's a question. Do you think the US aggression against Yemen, Libya and Syria or Iranian allies is warranted and Iran has no right to be angry at this?
I'm not aware of US aggression against Yemen.
Well, we know how we've basically been bombing the shit out of them. Well, they have.
No, that was Saudi Arabia.
Well, apart from Saudi Arabia yet. But in terms of Yemen, Libya, Syria, do you think the Iranians have right to be angry at the fact that we've been basically bombing their allies? And that's why it's led to this.
Okay, Syria. It wasn't. Even
just
though.
Give me a sec.
Okay, I'm going to answer it anyway. In the meanwhile, I don't think America should have intervened in Syria. Because I don't think Bashar al-Assad was as bad as a dictator and as brutal as someone like Saddam Hussein to warrant taking him out. Libya, Gaddafi, I can actually see a good reason to warrant taking out Gaddafi, because Gaddafi was a major sponsor of terrorism, including there was a plane crash in Scotland, wasn't there, which he was a part of. I think he like bombed the plane or something. I can't remember. Someone will be able to recall it anyway. But Gaddafi, there was a good reason to take him out. However, they did it totally wrong. They didn't have any follow-through plan. So I do actually believe there is US aggression against Libya. Yes, if they followed it through. Syria, no. Yemen, I don't believe there has been US aggression against Yemen. Oh, and Iran has no right to be angered at this. I don't think it's any of Iran's business what happens in Yemen, Libya, or Syria. They may have some Shia in Yemen, so I can see why they'd have an interest there, but it's not their country.
I can just go answer this question that was given to me. Given about the people of Iran turning against the tyrannical Iranian regime and the mass protests, which the government had responded by murdering protests and turning off the internet, isn't there good justification to take out a senior figure?
Can I just interrupt? It's the Lockerbie bombing that Gaddafi, I think, played a part in, which happened in Scotland. So that just gives you an idea of Gaddafi and how the kind of stuff he did.
So this one, in terms of Iran, that was asked. Yes, there are anti-government protests happening, but at the same time, there's just as many protests about the killing of this general. And I think if America were to take a particular side, it would just escalate in either afterwards in a civil war, and then we'll just end up back to square one, where there's no functioning government in Iran, and we basically don't have any sort of infrastructure to make meaningful progress in the region. That's what I'd say to that question.
Yeah, I don't believe Iran would dare want to provocate America in any sort of big way, because they know the consequences. They know America has the biggest, most powerful military in the world by far. Like the next one down, well, that's going to be China. Even China, their military is way more powerful than China's. So it's certainly going to be way more than Iran's. If America, I believe actually America could quite successfely totally destroy the economy of Iran overnight if they wanted to. But I don't think that's in their interests.
I've just had a question. What do I call my cat? It's called Nymeria.
I've just got a comment here, rather good one. It says Damien Heads is Boris as cool, right wing, and trustworthy as all the fanboys say. Yes, I agree with that. Damien is cool, just like Boris. Thank you very much. And
is he trustworthy though? Do you think he is?
Boris Johnson is very trustworthy. He may not be the Trump that we would like. He's not Trump. But
well, he's a very British-esque Trump, isn't he? A British-esque.
He's as close as we're going to bloody well get to getting our own version of Trump, and therefore we need to back him. And also, if you don't believe he's going to be serious when it comes to immigration and things like that, because that's the major concern on people on our side of the argument. He's made Priti Patel Home Secretary, and Priti Patel is the most right-wing Conservative MP. Trust me now, this is a woman who supported the death penalty until she had to backtrack on that because she was getting a lot of shit for it.
This is a good question in terms of something we were discussing earlier. Follow-up, if Iran isn't allowed to be angry at the US for bombing the fuck out of disabling its allies, should we not have been angry when Germany bombed the fuck out of Poland in 1939?
Okay, well, you make a good point there. Maybe I phrased that wrong. I'm not saying they didn't have a right to be angry, but I just meant it's none of their business, really. So you'd have to take each individual country. So Libya, I'm not sure what Iran have got to be angry about in Libya, because what's their unless they're trying to take over these regions and have them be their puppets, then why are they so upset? I just think it says more about Iran that they want to basically have this control over the Middle East. And I actually think it's bloody well good that America have gone, actually, no, fuck you. You're not going to go out and start fucking invading all these different countries. There's a limit, actually. You can't just invade a country, kill hundreds of thousands of people. That's not how it works.
That comment that just came through is pretty funny.
Pretty the fitty.
Yeah.
Certainly. I certainly agree with that. Pretty that ass. That's all I'm going to say about that.
There was a question about Boris. It's that Boris doesn't believe in anything, that will backtrack on everything just to stay in power. What do you think to that? I mean, 1 minute he was quite liberal under David Cameron, and now he's sort of backtracking into sort of populism and conservatism.
When you're in politics, you have to play the game. And when he was under Cameron, he wanted to be preferably in the cabinet and being the most effective as he could be. If he went into government with David Cameron mouthing about this needs to change, that needs to change, then he would not have climbed up the greasy pole so well. He's had to be congenial and give certain things away in his career to be able to get to the point where he is. But now he's in control. He's got the biggest Conservative majority ever. Sorry, not ever. Since Thatcher, he can do what he wants. So it doesn't matter.
You can't, this comment just came through, you can't just invade a country and kill thousands of its people. That's not how it works. Tell that to Blair and Bush.
You can actually...
I sort of agree with that.
You can actually kill a brutal dictator if they're killing hundreds of thousands of people, especially if you're saving hundreds of thousands of people in doing so. If there's like a minority, like the Christians in the Middle East, surely that's more worthwhile than anything. Like, if you have the opportunity to save a minority such as the Christians in the Middle East from annihilation by people like ISIS, why would you not want to do that?
So this is a pretty good question, actually. I would join the Conservatives if I could trust Boris was properly right-wing. Well, what I'll say to that is that's why Damien has set up Purple Tories, because...
I believe he is.
Well, so we can try and influence the Conservative Party from within, and at the same time advocate for nationalism and the identity of the British people to remain strong and to the close heart of the Conservative Party.
Well, it's not so much. Well, almost. I actually do.
You sound a bit more beautiful, I think.
No. I actually do believe Boris is properly right wing, as you said it. He's not Enoch Powell, but he is very solid. I believe he's been strong on Brexit ever since he was a journalist at the Telegraph, and he's seen it from the inside out. So he's strong on Brexit. I believe he's strong on immigration purely for the fact that he's put Priti Patel as Home Secretary. And look at all of his other cabinet picks: Jacob Rees-Mogg, Dominic Raab. These are not people you put in charge if you're a wetbag lefty or a liberal.
I think you should answer this one. So, do you believe in killing the majority to save the minority?
Well, it depends.
In terms of,
if the majority are a bunch of Nazis and the minority some Christians in the Middle East, then why not?
what do you think about the protection of ethnic British people, so white people?
Well, British people or white people, choose.
Well, Britain has been majority white.
I think I know where this question is going. Yeah. Do you think that,
what the whole Tommy Robinson sort of thing that's been going on last few?
Yeah, this is actually, you know what? This is actually a really interesting debate, a really interesting question. These type of questions, because
I think we should do a separate stream just for this question.
Well, no, I actually do want to make a comment on this, because there is a lot of this kind of question about white identity and all this kind of thing, because you get all the sort of people on the alt-right who say, these conservatives aren't real conservatives. You have to care about your race and all this kind of thing. And I actually think there's a middle ground between the conservatives, the Boris Johnson conservatives or whatever you want to call them, and the alt-right. And I think I sit in that middle ground, which is, no, I would not like to see this country become majority brown. I would like it to stay a majority white. And
so you'd say technically that's the premise of the ethno state. So you would like us to remain an ethnically homogenous nation?
No, because homogenous.
That's what you just say. You want Britain to be majority white, but
no, because majority isn't the same as homogenous. Homogenous implies that you want the whole population to be white. That's ridiculous.
It doesn't necessarily. It means that you want your nation. You want white people to be the majority in their country.
Anyway, let me finish this point quickly.
Skipping the question, Damien.
No. I'm addressing it totally, actually. So
no, you were skipping the question. I said, do you want Britain to remain a majority white nation? And you didn't answer.
I answered it earlier, and I said yes. I said
there we go.
You even asked that, but But that's the thing. There's this tendency on the alt-right and the just more traditional conservative right, where you have to be like, oh yeah, everyone has to be white, or you have to be, oh yeah, it doesn't matter what race you are. Literally, Britain could turn brown, and it doesn't mean anything as long as they play cricket and all the rest of it. I think there's a middle ground which I sit on, and all these alt-right people who think they're so sort of in the wilderness and like no one's sort of with them. Well, actually, not so much, because I think the country should stay majority white, but that doesn't mean I think the whole country should stay white. I think there's nothing wrong with having a good mix of people on top of that, but I don't believe we shouldn't be a majority white, because I do think there is something valid in wanting to preserve your country's ethnicity. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that.
Okay, so we agree on that point, I believe.
Yeah, but you don't believe, Jacob, that the country should be 99% white, do you?
I believe we should remain in the majority, but I don't think we should be an absolute. Well, that's a tough question, isn't it? Do we allow do we still allow immigration into the country? Personally, I would like to see a ban, like what Trump wanted to do, the 5-year ban, and then assess the situation. Immigration. Yeah.
Well, that's totally different, because you're talking about an ideology, banning people based on an ideology, and I have plenty of time for that. So we're in agreement there. But you don't believe that, this country needs to be like 99% white, do you?
No, but I believe we should allow ethnic people in the country still, but I would still like to see white people still be a majority in our country. That makes sense.
Yeah. So you don't need to be, either one end where it's like, oh yeah, Britain can be totally brown and that's fine, or one end where no, it has to be completely white. There can be like a middle ground where we should be majority white, but we don't have to be 99% white.
Question is,
I think that's an interesting thing to cover, though, because a lot of people that does come up, Israel and white identity politics and all that kind of rubbish.
I mean, I think we should have a separate stream where we discuss these issues personally.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it's not a topic I really want to delve into that much.
Well, really. I mean,
I thought it's interesting to cover just as a little side note. But anyway, let's go back to the comments quickly, because we should wrap it up soon because we're coming up to an hour. So let's just read these last few. Why I don't understand, as long as British culture and heritage is retained, what is wrong with there being a difference in skin tone? I don't know. There's something to say about preserving an ethnicity, I think. I would be sorry to see France turn majority Moroccan, for instance. I would like to see France stay majority French, For starters, it would ruin the beautiful French nose. You'd have that horrible nose they have. Yeah. And I think I'm going to cut it there, actually, now that Jacob's disappeared. So thanks for joining the stream, guys, and I will see you later.
Apologies.